Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my lecture. So in my previous lecture we discussed about how to control through price or through quantity regulations as far as pollution is concerned. Two examples that we had considered while discussing price regulations or quantity regulations are global warming, the other one is nuclear leakages. So both have severe environment impact, mainly adverse impact, and how that actually impact on the market, and therefore we spoke about with the help of market analysis, like market efficiency analysis, where we try to understand how price regulations and quantity regulations on the pollutions and then pollution reduction level, like how government can actually control or regulate this quantity. So today we will be talking about more internal or the local individualized externalities. So far we have spoke about externalities which has adverse impact both at the society, also at the farm level, and then how government can actually intervene, or how market can actually resolve, or how public solutions or public remedies actually can resolve. Those are in case of in case of externalities, like for instance sludges or the pollutions, like pollution, air pollutions, and also we can actually think of say water pollutions, and how those can be kind of addressed or addressed. So far we discussed about the externalities, and then those externalities could be like say out of negative production externalities, or negative consumption externalities, or positive externalities and negative positive consumption externalities. And then in these cases we also have seen that how market fails, and how it has impact on the overall efficient allocation of the resources. So today we'll focus on local and the individualized externalities that we face, like we as individually face, and then how to sort of remedy or how to mitigate those kind of issues. So I'm taking only one example, and we are trying to understand from economics point of view, and then how at the policy level how that can be addressed. So economics of smoking that I'm taking that example. The one example that I have used here is like economics of smoking. So let us talk about in details, like what do we mean by economics of smoking. So first let us understand the role of smoking in air pollution point of view, of course, but then at the same time we also thinking from the health hazards point of view. So smoking can directly can be linked with the air pollutions, and air pollutions or the water pollution, these are the policy level threat and policy level sort of challenges that not only policy makers they are facing, also we as a students of economists are also very much puzzled with this this kind of externalities, which is negative externalities, like for instance for industrial point of view, like industrial sludges, or say industrial waste that we see that has that has the power to kind of pollute the air and as well as the water. So in that particular context we already spoke about it, which is from negative production externalities. In this particular case, that when we are trying to understand economics of smoking, so in this particular example that we had taken is like we are trying to understand externalities of smoking from, say, broad 5 points of view. One is the effects of the healthcare cost. So like there is a cost involved. Like we are not only talking about the cigarette that we are buying it, that has a market for itself. And then if you remember in our last couple of lectures, we actually moved out from market for the product to market of, say, outcome, like say adverse outcome, which is the pollution. Here we are not actually talking about just like cigarette, market for cigarette. There is a different discussion altogether. And in our example that we already had given, like cigarette can actually has a cause of has a negative production externalities. But here what we are trying to understand when we are conceptualizing economics of smoking, we are trying to understand externalities of smoking from negative consumptions externalities point of view. So the first impact is the like effects of the healthcare cost, like other than buying like direct economic cost. But then if we have certain health hazard due to smoking, then we have to go to doctors, we have to visit hospitals, then there will be cost involved, and that is the effects of the healthcare cost. And then if you also see that there are insurance market are also there, and they also will be design certain level of policy keeping smokers in mind. And that's how economics of smoking is so important, not only from smokers point of view, but also from those who are designing the policy, as well as from the insurance markets point of view. From labor markets point of view, we already know that smoking is injurious to health, and which actually has a negative impact on the productivity of the workforce, and that has negative impact on the labor market. Fire hazard, that also is one of the reasons, and therefore that has potential impact on the externalities point of view. Then if there is a death due to smoking, that also it also has a sort of potential point of negative consumption externalities. And then the third point is like not always kind of active smokers are at the risk, but then also passive smokers are also consuming indirectly, what we call second hand smoking effect. So they also have certain level of health hazard. So now how externalities are actually involved in this particular context, like if our health cost, like public healthcare system is designed in such a way that there is no cost involved for the effects on the healthcare, then there is no externalities. If there is a cost involved, then definitely externalities. So on the second point, if there is a social security or social insurance programs designed to protect productivity, and also to protect laborers or workers health, then there is no externalities required. But then certainly if they don't have, and then workers are getting affected and their productivity also getting affected, then there is a negative externalities, or there is an externality involved, because it has the cost and benefit. In case of fire hazard, if there is a designated place for the smoking, for instance in the airport or any of the in offices, if they have certain designated space for smoking, so that actually has a tendency to protect or to have kind of protect the fire hazard, then definitely there is no externality. But if there is no of that protection, then certainly there is a negative consumption externality, which actually has a cost associated to it. At the same time, for the early death, if there is some sort of checks and balance on the health, and then and if there is no death involved or premature death involved due to smoking, then certainly then there is no negative externalities. But then certainly if that occurs, then it is negative consumption externalities. So same goes with the second hand smoke effects. If for instance there is smoking is prohibited in the public places in some countries like in India, then that actually kind of reduces the passive smokers to get affected by the active smokers, and that's how negative externalities can be controlled and also can be avoided. And if that is not the case, then certainly there is a negative consumption externality involved. So that is how when we try to understand smoking from economics point of view and also policy related to economics of smoking's point of view. So these are the 5 broad points that we really need to understand when we define cost and benefit of any kind of product. It's not about the cigarette, but also the pollution or the smoking that are as a byproduct of the cigarette consumption. So when we are talking about local or individualized externality, so here what we are trying to say is the negative internality. It's like the damage done to oneself through adverse behavior that is not fully accounted for in decision making. Like here smoking, like your one person is smoking but then is getting severely kind of addicted and then can't actually quit smoking, then this is basically negative internality. It is not actually externality that we are actually so far we have been talking about it. So this is example of the negative internality and how one can actually kind of bring cost and benefit towards that, and then before the framing the public policy. So now protecting environment, and especially we would like to understand the role of government in practice. So there are a couple of examples that we want to give here. So in India, article 51G of the Indian Constitution clearly states that it is the duty of every citizen of India to protect and improve the natural environment, including forest, lakes, rivers, or wildlife, and to have compassion of living creatures. So that is is very clearly written in the Constitution, and the constitutional provisions are implemented through various environmental protection laws and acts in India. So these are a couple of examples that we would like to give you, so that that will help us to understand what theoretically we discussed when we spoke about externalities and then pollutions, and how that happens when we actually frame the policy. So the few things like natural resources or the say natural goods or say public goods that we'll try to consider 3, and then try to understand how those are major issues and the thread, and then how we have actually tackled. So in India, Environment Protection Act was framed in 1986, and this act actually encompasses a lot of things under which environment can be protected, land can be protected, air can be protected, pollution can be controlled. So let us take the example of first case, which is air, and then one of the major thread that we had is the ozone depletion. The first is, let us try to understand what is ozone depletion. The Earth's atmosphere has a thin layer of ozone that all of us we know, which actually shield us from harmful solar radiations. And then in 1980s, a hole was appearing in the ozone layers over Antarctica, and the cause for this particular hole was um, fluorocarbons, what we popularly it is known as CFCs, and other ozone depleting substances, and that was certainly direct environmental kind of threat, and also threat to the lives of the world populations. And then a treaty was signed in Montreal in Canada in 1987, and what we know as Montreal protocol, and that actually gives all the nation states, all the countries to come up with their own national level kind of regulations. So in India, we also have the ozone depleting substance regulations and control rules 2000. So this is and also this is the one of the regulations that we have to control this what we call ODS. So we have also seen that there is a progress, and then it will be again further progressed by 2050, where ozone depleting substance will be completely kind of eradicated, and then environment will not be impacted. So in context of air, so air pollution, as I have been telling in all my lectures, especially in context of externality, that air pollution, water pollutions are one of the two of the major threats in the policy level, and as well as in the economics discipline. So in case of air pollution, air prevention and control of pollution act 1981 that we have in India, and we also have national clear air program launched in 2019 in India. These are acts and the programs or the missions that at the national level in India we have introduced to control or to protect air quality, and also to enhance air quality, which has direct and indirect impact on the health, overall health, environmental health, as well as individual or human health. And global warming, as we know that this is one of the major struggles in recent in couple of last 2 decades especially, and that's how we are collectively globally that we are trying to work together, and we are trying to understand global warming much more clearly, that what are the issues and what are the possible kind of outcome or the solutions that we collectively can actually address. So these are the few examples as far as air pollution or air control is concerned. So now let's come to water. So in India, the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act is there and was enacted to provide for prevention and then control of water pollutions, and for the maintenance or restoration of the wholesomeness of the water in the country. So water issues like water problem, like sewage problems, and also water treatment, so these are the issues that we are having, and as a policy level, both at the national level, also at the state level, and also at the local level, like in the urban areas, at the municipality level, there are certain rules, regulations are there to protect water in India, because this is the major threat, and we already know that world is facing global water crisis, and by 2050 that will be major threat. And as we know that water is a primary source for agricultural product and also agricultural activities. Therefore food crisis is also one of the anticipation that we may have which is which is the kind of direct or adverse impact from the water crisis. So when we tackle or when we address the water crisis, then we really need to understand the pollution, which is like water pollution, waterborne diseases. So it is also there one of the major threat. So when we talk about this, so water becomes one of the most important points of the discussions as far as environment and its protection are concerned. So this the water prevention and control of pollution act of 1974 was amended in 1988 in India. The water prevention and control of pollution SES Act was enacted in 1977 in India to provide for levy and collection of a cess on water consumed by persons operating and carrying on certain types of industrial activities. So when we spoke about externalities and how to address externalities, and there we spoke about private sector solutions and also public sector solutions. In private sector solution, we spoke about in terms of compensations, but for public sector solutions, we spoke about from the introductions of taxation or cess. Even if you see in the urban households, urban households, we actually pay certain taxes or cess towards the using of the water. Similarly, at the industry level, there is a heavy kind of cess or taxation on the water usage, because without water, industrial activities cannot actually be performed. So from public sector solutions, it is also very important, like how this act actually helped to introduce certain tax or certain cess level. So now the land, which is again another one major issues as far as environmental protections are concerned. So the first thing that we try to understand that how to conserve the forest, and then different animals and different species that they are actually living there. So there is a the Forest Conservation Act 1980 that was enacted in India, which actually protect forest and also protect from deforestations, and then wetland conservation and management rules 2017 was there was enacted in India, and these particular rules actually helps for the to enhance biodiversity and also to take care of the ground level water. So to protect ground level water, so wetland rules 2017 was introduced in India. So municipal solid waste rules 2000 came into effect in India. So these are the very few examples. There are many other rules and regulations are there, but then these are the very few acts and the rules that and regulations that I'm discussing here to discuss about the air pollutions and to control land, and also to preserve the land and the forest, and also to kind of control the water from the pollutions. I stop here, and these are the two references that you can also read in order to understand other examples from globally, and what are the debates at the policy level, not only in India but also at the global level, and what are the pledges that have taken, what are the protocols have taken, what are the treaties signed. So I stop here, and thank you very much for your attention.